Alright guys, so in this one, I'm going to be talking about lower back pain caused by lifting and how you can avoid it. Alright, so it's really common, people that lift, especially into powerlifting, strength training, the squat and the deadlift especially, it's very common to complain of back pain, especially lower back pain in the lumbar spine region. This is understandable as the deadlift and the squat can place a lot of stress on the spine. There's a lot of compression during those movements of your spine actually getting like pushed together. That's why sometimes if you are trying do really heavy squats, you go and lie on the ground and you feel your back kind of just like decompressing it almost, you might even crack, like your back might just like crack open. That's because all that weight is pushing, compressing your spine. And also the sheer force of just sometimes if you have bad technique, obviously as most people know, if your spine's like curving, especially your lower back is starting to round as you're pulling deadlifting, that can really damage your back, and you can even herniate discs that way, although that's pretty uncommon. That can happen. So, but more commonly, it's just lingering pain that people have. Maybe when they're doing the deadlift, they feel pain, or if you're doing the squats. I know for me, what used to happen, I'd be squatting and I'd feel fine during the set, but then after I rack it, like as that spine decompresses after putting the weight back, it feels really painful. And then it's like, and the next day you try to bend over and it's a weird, you get a weird little tinge in your back, and it's very not only is it painful, but it's really discouraging, because the whole reason why we do strength training is to get stronger and be in better shape to handle things in life, I guess, and be more resistant to injury. That's part of the reason. It's one of the reasons why we do strength training, especially for athletes. So it's really annoying. It's like, well, hang on, I'm doing these movements like the squat and the deadlift are supposed to be good for me, right? But it's just messing with my back and it feels painful. So it can be very frustrating sometimes. So initially, when I started lifting, what I thought was, well, the squat and the deadlift are the best movements for building up your core, right? You need really strong core muscles for those lifts to be good at them, and which is true. So I thought, oh, then if I do it, that'll build the core. So if I do those movements that require that really strong core, they'll help build the core. And I've heard other people say this as well, that you don't even need to do direct core work like abs, crunches or planks or things like this, or hyperextensions. You don't need to do any of that. That's all. You don't need any of that. You can get all of that stimulus for your core and build your core just through doing the squat and deadlift, right? Which kind of makes sense initially, because if you think about it, people that have strong deadlifts have really strong core strength. You see, the people, if you look at strong men, they don't look super aesthetic, right? Like it's kind of you think you want to have the V tape with really big shoulders, small waist, but sometimes having a really thick, like bulky waist or like core abs is actually better for being stronger and being more resistant. So the people that deadlift the most, you see them, they've got really big cores, right? So what they do is they falsely assume that Y causes X, right? So if having a really strong deadlift is Y and having a strong core is X, they assume that, having a strong deadlift will mean that I have a strong core. When actually, I think that it's the other way around. It's X is Y. So if you build up your core and have a stronger core, doing that directly, that will help you build your deadlift. Or for example, not it won't. I'm not saying that if you do ab wheel rollouts or don't. If you want to build your deadlift, don't worry about deadlifting. Just do a bunch of crunches and planks and sit ups, and your deadlift will go up. Obviously not. But what will happen is that if you can get your core stronger, you will be more resistant to lower back pain and injury, because you'll be able to keep your spine more rigid during those movements. So what was happening with me, this happens to a lot of people and I don't even notice it, but when they're deadlifting, maybe their back, they might not feel their back is moving, that they feel like their pelvis is locked in, they're not really like moving their lower back, but just because of that core weakness, they're not able to fully keep locked down like this, crunch down. When you want to squat, when you think about bracing for a squat, you breathe in, crunch down, and you want to feel like your pelvis not like rolling, like you don't want to like curl in like where your back's like rounded like this. You want to think about bringing pelvis under, like, I might put a photo up of a good Instagram post I found where it's like you don't want to spill the bucket, right? If you imagine your hips, your pelvis is like a bucket of water. You don't want to be arching out like this. You don't want to be squatting with this kind of form where you're up, sticking your butt out, because that's the water's tipping out the front. But you don't want to arch your back, because then the water's tipping out the back of the bucket. So You want to think about pulling your pelvis in, but not to a neutral position, and then that'll mean that your lower lumbar spine will be straight. So that's the first step. But then once it's straight, you need to have that core strength, especially the abs in the front of your core, transverse abdominis. You need to make sure that that's strong to actually keep that tucked in throughout the squat or the deadlift. So if you're not currently doing this, I would strongly recommend that you start implementing some core exercises into your training program. So I would suggest as well movements that are based around anti-extension, anti-rotation. So not things like crunches, I did say that before, but not like movements where you're actually contracting your abs, like going through a range of motion like crunches or sit-ups. I'd recommend things like planks where you're resisting movement, or dead bugs, as I'll maybe demonstrate. Ab wheel rollouts, if you're good enough at doing that. Ab wheel rollouts, you can start from the knees, try and get more and more reps, pausing the reps at the top, and then maybe if you're good enough, you can do them from the toes all the way out. That's really hard. So guys, hopefully you can use some of these tips. If you've got some kind of nagging lower back sort of pain that you've been experiencing from squatting or deadlifting, hopefully you can use this and fix some of that. Anyway guys, thanks for watching this video. Like, subscribe, comment. I'll see you in the next one.